Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Lieutenant Stephen Rogers here at Campaign for America. Thank you for joining me this evening. John McCain will not be with us tonight. He's actually out on the road in southern New Jersey defending New Jersey citizens who have been victimized by the draconian measures that have been given to us by the governor of this state, Governor Phil Murphy. You know, Governor Phil Murphy some time ago stated that he had a dream that New Jersey would become the East Coast California. Well, he's worked pretty hard to make that dream come true. His dream has become our nightmare. And I'm sure around the country, people are facing the same situation with regard to the Biden administration. I was on a number of news network programs today. In fact, at 9 p.m. tonight, I'll be on One America News discussing a topic that we're going to discuss on this broadcast a little later, and it's about defunding the police. But with regard to vaccines, with regard to mandates related to wearing of masks and getting the vaccine, folks, I've got to tell you, in my view, this is no longer a public health issue. It is now an issue that involves the freedom and liberty of our country. It's a political issue. From Joe Biden in the White House to Fauci sitting wherever he's sitting tonight, they've made this a political mess for the American people. And I'm going to qualify that statement by telling you this, folks. I do not believe, and will never believe for 1 minute that the rights of parents should be taken away from them when it comes to the good and welfare and health of their children. No one should dictate to you, to me, or to anyone on this earth what they're going to put into their arms, what they're going to put into their bodies. When it comes to young children, they don't have a chance to make a choice, but the parents could make that choice for them. And parents, many of them, in fact, an overwhelming number of them whom I've talked to have said to me, they don't think and believe and will ever support the idea that the government should mandate them to put something in the body of their children without consultation with doctors and, in fact, parents, grandparents, and guardians who are ever keeping an eye on their children. The same thing with masks, folks. Look, I've said all along, on a Monday, you'll hear Fauci say, well, you know what, we need masks. And on a Tuesday, he'll say, well, maybe not. Then on a Wednesday, after political pressure is brought on him, well, maybe we should have masks. The same thing with the vaccine. No one, at least as far as I know, is anti-vax. I'm not anti-vax. I'm pro-freedom. And you know what that means, folks? You want to get a vaccine? That's your business, not mine. That's your business, not the government's. You don't want to get a vax? That's fine too. Nobody's business. So they're trying to label all of us who are pro-freedom and pro-liberty as anti-vaccine. Not true. You see how they twist the narrative, folks? You are anti-vaccine. You're a bad person. You're anti-vaccine. You don't want to help the public health of the nation. You're anti-vaccine. You are a danger, a terrorist, and on and on and on. Well, we are not anti-anything. We happen to be pro-liberty, pro-freedom. We happen to believe that the rights of parents and individuals, the rights, folks, of parents and individuals who are subjected to these measures should not be subjected to them at all. The government has no place, no business in our homes, in our workplaces, no business at all when it comes to hindering our individual liberties and freedoms. Keep that in mind, folks, as we move forward. Now, there's been a lot of pushback as a result of these mandates. First of all, let's talk about the airlines. Southwest Airlines, from what I understand and what's been reported, many of their pilots, many of crews, many flight attendants, and on and on and on, are simply leaving, walking off the job. They're not going to be bullied into taking a vaccine that they do not want to. Now, this past week, as many of you know, my wife and I flew to Dallas, Texas, and flew back. Twice there were delays in the flight. And on one of those flights, I believe it was from Dallas back to New Jersey, we were told they couldn't find the crew. Folks, in my lifetime, flying all over the country, I've never heard where a crew could not be found. Well, of course, United and other airlines are not going to say that publicly. They're going to say, for example, what we were told. The unofficial reason why they couldn't get the pilots was that they had a transportation problem between the hotel and the airport. But somebody whispered in our ears when we landed and says, you're lucky you got a pilot. So the fact of the matter is, folks, is that the business and industries of this country that are placing these draconian mandates on people, believe me, folks, when they start to feel the economic destruction that's going to come upon their companies, their organizations, and their corporations, all of a sudden, things are going to disappear. Mandate will not be enforced, or they're not going to want to talk about mandates. Why? It's all about this, folks. It's all about money. It's all about their economy, not yours, not mine. Keep this in mind, folks, that those individuals, and I said this on the air today, who are placing mandates on the American people, that's you and me, who are requiring us to do this and to do that. They don't have to do these things, folks. They simply don't have to do these things because they have the money to get their private jets, to get their private drivers, and on and on and on. How many times have we seen on television after these congressional representatives, governors, and other Democrat socialists get on the air and tell us that we will, that's right, you will do what I tell you to do. And if I tell you to wear a mask, you're going to wear a mask. And then we find out through somebody taking a phone and pulling that video button on it, we find out that these people are at a party or some sort of at an event without mask on. You see, my point is, folks, is that this is all part of the inclusion, if you will, the introduction of a Democrat, socialist, communist agenda. Think about it, folks. Now, you all know me. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not an extremist. I like to deal with facts. And when you look at history and when you begin to study what happened in Russia, Venezuela, and other countries that pretty much had freedom before their revolutions and became communism, you look at what happened to these countries, it began inch by inch, mile by mile, state by state. And before you know it, you have an entire country being governed by who? By the Communist Party. Beijing, folks, they have their fingerprints all over what's going on here. For the life of me, I can't figure out why Joe Biden, I won't even call him president of the United States because he certainly is not representing what I believe to be the common good of the American people. Why is it we haven't pushed back on China? They are responsible for this virus. The Chinese Communist Party, Beijing. And I know, folks, I know they're tuning in. I know that, okay? I know that from some of the emails we're getting, the back channels we're getting. I know all of that stuff. So if they're listening and watching, good for you. Hear this. You're never going to defeat the United States of America. You're never going to take Taiwan. And I could go on and on and on. You will be held accountable for your actions. But even more so, the American leaders of this country in Congress, in the Senate, and right now sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue will be held accountable for the destruction that is being caused in the lives of Americans across this country. And what we're going to do is march. Oh, yeah, we're going to have millions of people marching. You know what we're going to march to, folks? We're going to march to the polls. We're going to march to the voting booths. We're going to come out like millions. And look at, and hear me about this. We can't be bogged down as to what has happened in the past. I get it. I understand. People are concerned and rightfully concerned about election fraud and about things that could disrupt the outcome of an election. But we cannot let that deter us from going to vote. We need to go, folks. We need to do the best we can with what we have. I believe truly that if Republicans, Democrats, or conservative and independent voters come out by the millions within weeks, not months, within weeks after an election, we're going to turn this country back to where it belongs. I truly believe that. But I want to get to back to Beijing a minute. Remember, folks, I shared with you a few weeks ago, in fact, probably for a good part of the year, that Joe Biden is going to drag us into a terrible, terrible war. And I said to you, look at your children. Look at them. Look at them and enjoy them while you can. Because if a war breaks out between the United States and China, and that's what I was pointing to months ago, we're going to be in some serious trouble. And I believe that Joe Biden and the Democrat Socialists will have no choice but to invoke a draft because now, because of their draconian mandates, because of the communist and woke influence on the military. Recruitments are down and retirements are up. Where are they going to get the manpower? Now, Lieutenant, how can you say this? Give us some idea as to the foundation of what you just said. Well, many of you may not know this, that the Chinese Communist Party had been running aerial missions pretty close to Taiwan. I believe over 100 fighter jets and bombers over the past 2 weeks have gone into a zone that they should not be going into, very, very close to Taiwan. I also received a report today, soon to be checked out, but I believe it's credible, that the Chinese Communist Party is already conducting beach landings on their own soil. They're practicing, folks, okay? They're having drills on beach landings. And you know what that is in real language? They're drilling on how to invade a country. Where do you think they're going to go, folks? What country do you think they're going to invade? After what they witness, they meaning the Chinese Communist Party and our friends, by the way, after they witnessed the atrocity that happened in Afghanistan, brought to us by Joe Biden and the Democrat Socialist Party, they got to be scratching their heads thinking, look what we can do. We could send 1 million Chinese troops into Taiwan. And what do you think the United States government is going to do? What do you think they're going to do? You know what I think we're going to do? Nothing under this administration. Why? Because what we should be doing now. We should be going after the Chinese economy. There should be sanctions that'll cripple them to no end. There should be a deportation order of anyone connected to Communist China. You're going back to China. Simple as that. That doesn't mean that every Chinese person in America belongs back to China. I'm not saying that. And I'm going to clear it up before the press goes crazy. We have great Chinese Americans in this country. They work hard. They really do. And they should be here because they worked hard and they got here legally. But when we discover, for example, that there are some Chinese people here and others perhaps who are working for the Chinese Communist Party, it's time to go. You know what? I think to some degree, maybe not working with the Chinese Communist Party, but possibly being cuddled up to by the Chinese Communist Party is a guy named Hunter. You know Hunter, right? Hunter Biden. Why hasn't that whole issue been brought to surface? Why hasn't anything been done with regard to the so-called mishaps, if you will, all right, of Hunter Biden? Why hasn't that happened, folks? Why hasn't anything happened with regard to Joe Biden's coziness with the Chinese Communist Party? If you notice, folks, from this whole issue regarding the vaccine, Joe Biden was defending China. Joe Biden and his administration were saying, well, we're not going to call this the Chinese flu or the Chinese disease or the Chinese this or that. We're going to name it something else. We don't want to offend the Chinese Communist Party. You notice that, folks? So right away, the political correctness changed the name of the COVID-19. Not the Chinese flu, not the Chinese disease. We'll call it something else. Joe Biden, his administration, have done more to protect the Chinese Communist Party than the American people. So now we got a situation where we have China, brought to us by the Communist Party and President Xi, making it very, very clear to the United States what they're going to do. So the question is, what are we going to do? My guess is, now, mark this down tonight, put the date with my name next to it. You could see that Lieutenant Rogers said on this day of October 13, 2021 at 6:43 p.m. that the Chinese Communist Party will deploy their troops against Taiwan sometime after, if not before, but I'm going to kind of bet on after the 2022 congressional elections. Believe me, folks, I truly believe they're waiting for that. Because I believe that if they have any inkling that Republicans are going to take over the 2022 congressional seats, they're going to worry about who's coming to the White House in 2024. And they know, President Xi knows, that if he gets out of line, well, there'll be a quick, decisive, stinging response to the mainland China. I believe that. I believe that who's ever the president, they will strike, and they will strike vigorously. Ronald Reagan told us, peace through strength. Donald Trump portrayed A lot of people say what they want about Trump. You know what? I disagree with 99.9% of what they say, because he was a good president and he did a great job in protecting our country from the likes of the Chinese Communist Party. So keep that in mind. So you got the vaccines, you got them doing their military maneuvers now, military war drills, war gaming drills, if you will, on mainland China. And at the same time, they're sending threatening messages to the people who live and work in Taiwan. What's the common thread, folks? Well, we know the common thread is China, right? But the common thread leads me to, we'll follow the thread. We're going to go from China, all right? We're going to come to Taiwan. Now we're going to come back to America. And I'll tell you what the common thread is. Leads us to crime in our cities. The city of Seattle is now facing a situation where many, if not all, their police officers will be gone in a short period of time. In Minneapolis, we got some individuals in the Democrat Socialist Party who are now calling not only for the defunding of the police in those cities, but the dismantling of the police in those cities. Now, I spoke today, and you could hear me tonight on One America News about this issue, and I would tell you this, folks. I wish no harm to anyone. Believe me, I do not want to see any harm to anybody, no matter how disgusted I am with their politics. But when, because it's not a matter of if, when after these individuals calling for the defunding and dismantling of police become the victims of violent crimes, because there won't be any cops left to protect them, you see how fast they're going to beg on their hands and knees for police. They have not, they meaning the Democrat socialist leaders of this country, like Mayor de Blasio of New York, like the mayor of Chicago, the mayor of Seattle. I mean, I could go on and on and on, folks. You know the list. I said on the air today, all of these people calling for the dismantling and defunding of the police, they have never walked the streets of a Chicago, of a New York City, of any place where crime is running rampant, where people are being shot down in the streets, where kids are being killed and their blood is being shed in the streets of this country. They are not at all and have never been on these streets. And if they were probably surrounded by armed people. That's right, folks. The same people telling you and me we cannot have the right to bear arms. Why? Well, because they don't want us to be able to defend ourselves against these criminal elements. They don't want us to be able to defend ourselves against bad people. But they want the defense against bad people. They want somebody next to them to take a bullet for them. They're cowards. They're cowards. So I was asked the question, so if they defund and they dismantle the police in these cities, what do you think is going to happen? I'll tell you what's going to happen, folks. Crime is going to leave the cities and they're going to go into neighborhoods all over their state. And they're going to go down, they're going to break doors down, they're going to beat people, they're going to kill people. It's going to be like the Taliban coming into Kabul. Exactly. Because there won't be any cops left. I've spoken to some people around the country, and I was shocked to learn that in some cities they do dial 911, and if you get an answer, well, expect 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes to get a cop. Can you imagine that, folks? 20 to 25 minutes to get a cop. And they, meaning the people who have put these draconian measures upon us, they are telling you and me we do not have the right to defend ourselves. Too bad. But we have to change this. And we have the power, and we can change it. And I'm going to tell you in a minute how we can do that. So now let's take that common denominator, okay? Let's take that common denominator, and let's talk about another topic, one that I know hits home. It has to do with law enforcement, but it has to do with the Department of Justice being weaponized by the Biden administration to go after who? You. Mom and dad who goes to a school board meeting to express their views on the woke agenda, on all this crazy critical race theory stuff, on everything that their children are being taught that they don't want their children to be taught. The Department of Justice is now being unleashed on mom and dad, on grandma and grandpa, on the guardians of the children that God has given them to protect. All these parents want to do is to protect their kids, but not the Biden administration, not the Department of Justice, not the socialist communist influence in this country. Control, control, control. You'll do what I tell you to do when I tell you to do it. You'll hear what I tell you to hear. You'll talk when I tell you to talk. You will listen, you will be quiet, and you will not speak until I tell you to speak. That's where it's leading, folks. Freedom of speech, freedom of worship, freedom of the right to bear arms, the right to life, and on and on and on is being slowly, slowly, slowly removed from us. Why? Because we don't have a few things. We don't have a few things. Before I get to that, I want to get to that common thread. So let's reveal it. Let's expose the common thread. Everything that I've shared with you, everything, and there's much more, has been embraced by the Democrat Party of the 21st century. That's right. I have not yet heard nor seen any group of Democrats stand up and say, enough is enough. They're just rolling along, putting the signs of Democrat governors, Democrat presidents, Democrat congressmen, put them up on your front lawns, folks. I tell you, I stand amazed at the unions who are endorsing Democrats, folks. Look, not too many people know I was a union president. That's right. I was a union president, a PBA president in our local community here in New Jersey. I was a union president. I know how it works, folks. I know how the unions work. And unions will go out. They will go out and they will make endorsements of the people who they can get access to and who they can buy. I never accepted that. As a union president, I said, you know what, guys? Let's do what's right. Let's do what's proper, and we're going to win. And let's scare the living hell out of these politicians and not take any garbage from them. And we did. It can be done if you stick together. If the rank and file in police departments, fire departments, in labor and in other unions stick together and just put it to their union leaders that they're going to be drained from the swamp as well as the politicians. But here we have people in this country. God gave them a blessing to be an American citizen. I'm proud to be an American. And everyone in this country who benefited off of the backs of everyone who lived and died before us should be standing up for that flag that you see behind me and use the power that God gave them within the framework of the Constitution to destroy the communist socialist influence in this country. And we can do it, and we will. So the common thread, the Democrat Party of the 21st century is now under the control of a very strong socialist communist influence. Now, I have friends who are Democrats, and boy, do they get angry with me when I say that. They get angry with me when I say that because they say I'm accusing them of being a socialist or a Democrat. I'm sorry, a socialist or a communist. I'm not accusing anybody of anything. But if the shoe fits, you're going to wear it. I can never in my lifetime will ever support Democrat, Republican, or whatever who are leaning towards a socialist communist agenda, which leads me to our party, the Republican Party. I want to see, and I don't know if we're going to see it yet, maybe we will soon. I want to see the Republican leadership across this country, in every state, in every county, in every single locality, stand up like Governor Ron DeSantis in Florida has stood up. He has stood up. He has stood up strong. I tell you, it's almost like the guy's alone, standing as a single wall, separating the socialists and communists from the free people of his state, from the free people of his state who are stopping that terrible influence from coming into where? The schools in Florida, the workplace in Florida, the homes in Florida. Governor Ron DeSantis, think about that, folks. One guy who's standing up for this flag and for the flag of his state is able to and has been successfully hitting as hard as he could back at the socialist communist influence. Governor Abbott, good for him. He's already signed some executive orders and having some laws passed that are preventing everybody in his state from being subjected to mandates. And I could talk about Kristi Noem in South Dakota and on and on and on. But they need our help. They need our help. And people have asked me, How can we help? I feel helpless. Don't feel helpless. We have the power. Look, folks, we never surrendered our power. We've never surrendered our power. Let's not do it now. In 1776, we the people did not surrender our power. In the Civil War, we the people did not surrender our power. World War I, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, and on and on and on. We never surrendered our power. We have the power. But what happens is the American people, a lot of American people will feel helpless and powerless, and they'll fall into this rut and say, I'm not going to do nothing. I remember in 1950s, I remember as a kid, I saw this little fat chubby guy, all right, taking his shoe and banging it on a lectern. And behind him was this map of the world. And it was the United Nations. And he banged and banged and banged. And he said, the Soviet Union will not have to fire one shot to destroy the American people. In due time, they will destroy themselves from within. And years later, now in this century, I think about what he said, because nobody could destroy us, folks. No one except ourselves. So we have to make sure we're not going to go down that road. I've spoken to dozens of people, including my wife, as you know, about the rise and the fall of the Soviet Union. And my wife warned me a year ago, folks, you want to look at me. I was a guy in denial a year ago when she said, see what's happening? If Joe Biden gets elected, you see what's going to happen? If these Democrats get elected to office, I'm telling you what's going to happen. And she went right down the list. They're going to go after your education systems. They're going to go after your law and order, and on and on and on. I told my wife, they said, look, it may have happened there, but it's not going to happen here. She said, well, let's wait and see. And so I waited, and I had to tell my wife, you were right. Which leads me to this, folks. We know our enemy. We know our enemy is the Chinese Communist Party. We know our enemy are those who are embracing a socialist communist agenda. Our enemy is not the Democrats in this country, not the Democrat conservatives, not the Democrat moderates, and even in some cases, very few, but not even the Democrat liberals who need to wake up a little. But our enemy are those, whether they're Democrat or Republican, and they're more on the Democrat side than the Republican side, who have embraced the socialist communist agenda. The question is, how do we deal with them? We deal with them by working within the framework of the law, by not looking backward, by looking forward. Look, we can, all we want, I've figured this out, folks, at least to some degree. They, meaning the enemies of this country, are keeping us so focused on the past, we're forgetting about the future. You turn the TV on, it's all about the election of 2020. That's all they're talking about, because they know that that's what upsets people. They know, keep them busy, discourage them, make sure they don't go vote, let them believe everything is going to fall apart, the sky's falling, the world's going to end, every machine, every ballot, everything is rigged. They're not even going to bother to vote. And what troubles me, I'm hearing people say that on our side. I'm not going to vote. I'm not going to get involved. What's the sense? That's how they're going to win, if we surrender it. Let us not surrender the power we have. We can't control a lot of things in life, but my goodness, we can control what we think and what we say. So we need to wake up, to stand up and to say, I'm not going to take this anymore, and I'll do everything I could within my power to make sure that my children and my grandchildren do not live under a flag other than the one that you see right here, So we have an obligation. I've always said this country was created divinely by God Almighty. I believe that. I believe this country was blessed by God, that our freedom and liberties are a gift from God. And you cannot take a gift from God away from the people that he gave the freedom and liberty to. So it is very, very important that we understand we have an obligation to God. We have an obligation to our founding fathers. We have an obligation to every single American patriot who lived and died from the day before us, means yesterday, the day before today, all the way back to the founding of this country. The only reason why people should look back is to learn. Learn about history. Learn about the mistakes and take what you've learned and apply it to what you're going to do as you move forward. I learned a lot in the military, working with U.S. military intelligence about the Soviet Union. I learned a lot about the Chinese communists. I learned a lot about how you take a nation down and how you rebuild a nation. I learned a lot, folks. So did Ronald Reagan. So did Pope John Paul VI. And so did Margaret Thatcher in their time. So did Winston Churchill in his time. Why do I mention these people? Because these are the people that led the fight of their lives for freedom and liberty. And there's many more. I believe FDR is one. Harry Truman's another one. Teddy Roosevelt. Man, we've got a list of great Americans who we don't hear about anymore. But all they want us to hear about is what? The ideology of Stalin, the ideology of Marx, the ideology of Lenin. That's what they want us to hear about. And that's the ideology they want our children to hear about. We cannot let that happen. And we're not. We're not going to let it happen because we're going to spread the word. We're going to get out and vote. We're going to get that anchor, folks, in the Navy. You know what you do on a ship? You cut anchor. Cut anchor, bring the anchor up. Let's move forward and let's destroy. I'm not saying hurt. I'm saying destroy the enemies of this country and send them back to the ash bin of history so that they could become the neighbor of the former Soviet Communist Party. That is what we need to do. All right, folks. So a couple of things. Programming note. Friday night, if you've got not much to do, at 7:00 p.m., broadcasting live from New Jersey, what I hope to be the next mayor of New York City, Bill Pepitone, will be with us. Bill Pepitone will be our special guest on a special broadcast Friday night, 6:30 p.m. here at Campaign for America. He is running for the mayor of New York City. Also, we'll have some individuals who are thinking about running for Congress, and we'll have a number of other special guests who will join us. So it'll be a special broadcast, 6:30 p.m. 7 p.m. Friday night. Now, one other thing, and I mention it on the air a lot. Never give up hope, but don't put all your hope and trust in man. I guarantee you this. Put your hope and trust in God. Now, for those of you who don't believe in God, I get it. I understand it. You have that right. But I'm speaking to those of you like me who believe in Almighty God, who believe in a God that loves and a God that wants to protect this country, a God that gave us freedom and liberty. Man was created to be free, enslaved to no one. So pray. I believe in the power of prayer. People, for some reason, don't want to talk about that very much. Politicians don't want to talk about that. You know, wherever I go and I make speeches, folks, in fact, I got a wake-up call one day giving a speech, and I always include in the speeches I give and the lectures I give some Bible scriptures from principles that I've taken from the Bible and applied to my life, and I share it with people and implore them to do that. Well, I got a wake-up call one day when I finished the speech, and a whole bunch of people, great job. You get that all along, all the time you get that, and that's flattering and it's nice. But one woman come up to me, an elderly woman come up to me and said, "You know what, Lieutenant? I enjoyed your speech, but I jumped for joy when I heard you speak to all of us about a particular psalm in the Bible. I heard the speech, but I listened when you mentioned God and when you mentioned a particular scripture in the Bible. There is a hunger and there is a thirst for truth, right? Everybody's talking about they want transparency and they want the truth. That hunger and thirst can only be filled not by what man feeds you, but what God feeds you. And where are you going to get that food, right? Soul food, right? Where are you going to get that food that will go deep into your heart, soul, and your spirit? You'll get it from the Bible. I have a Bible right here, folks. Right here. The best-selling book on planet Earth, now and forever. You'll get it. So before you go to bed tonight, if you want, what I do, I just open up to a book of Psalms and I'll read one Psalm and I'll say, wow, that hit me right here. It hit me right here. So do that. He'll answer our prayers. He'll continue to protect our nation. I really believe that. That's it, folks. And it was a pleasure being with you this evening. John will be back with us next week. We got a lot going on. Don't we? Well, we're all in the same boat. But I'll tell you what, the boat I'm in, no more being anchored to stay put. We're moving forward. Full speed ahead. Full speed ahead. Folks, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. And I appreciate you taking the time to pray for our country and to work very, very hard to keep us free. Friday night, 7 p.m. here on Campaign for America. And if you get a chance, visit our website, campaignforamerica.com. It's on that red banner down there, campaignforamerica.com. Thank you. God bless you. God bless America. And remember, the chief end of man is to love and to glorify God forever.